You need to know what the right questions are.
Hi there and welcome to From Ideas Results. I'm joined by Chris, part of our data and our performance team here at Sleeping Giant Media, and we're going to be exploring all the things that have been happening in the world of data in the last 30 days or so. One of the things I know that you've been talking about, quite excited about, is the tie-up with Supermetrics and Claude. I know we're using Claude quite a bit. Can you talk us through what that means and sort of what you've been exploring with and what you're seeing as a result?
Essentially means is you can just have a conversation with your data. And because Supermetrics also connects to lots of different data sources. So you don't have to worry about, is there an MCP for Facebook? Is there an MCP for X, Y different platforms?
Okay.
It's just the same way of grabbing that data that you may have been using for Google Sheets at the moment or directly into Looker. You can now use for your conversational runs with data, which is very interesting. And particularly Claude, lots of them are very good, but Claude is very good at giving that output in quite a nice visual, well summarized way.
Supermetrics is essentially like that gateway tool that we use to access all those different platforms. So we often use that to kind of pull it all together. Historically, you've been using things like BigQuery and maybe a Looker Studio and kind of visualizing reports from that. So using Supermetrics as that collection device and then breaking that out into some sort of visual display. What we're saying here is that now AI can potentially, and in this instance Claude, becomes that sort of ability to access that data, that whole set of tools through that one MCP connection.
Exactly.
What are the challenges or risks or limitations with this, and also the upside? Like how do you see that changing the way that data and performance are kind of managed and measured and run?
Yeah, I mean, start with the exciting thing, isn't it? It really does democratize data. The challenge has quite often been, especially if you're not very up to speed with how GA4 or platforms work, you can ask very simple questions and it will return something that will be logical with good data, quite often with visuals as well, depending on which LLM you're using. So being able to access that data is super simple and it won't take any setup time. The challenge, however, is it won't have the context unless you add knowledge files, etc., of what are the nuances of your setup. Are there particular things about it that actually your analysts or the people that are setting up your dashboards are going in and saying, actually, I need to exclude that because it's not actually relevant. I need to remove the nulls. You know, we had one recently where we have a customer dimension. That custom dimension is being populated, but it's being populated with null when it's null. And the system would go in and say is null, which is in itself its own operator, whereas is null, the value null is a different thing.
Right, yeah. And so some of the limitations there, it almost doesn't know what it doesn't know, which is always a classic challenge with AI.
Exactly, yes, yeah. And you can definitely add knowledge files and add it context and say, here's certain things about my setup that you should be aware of, but you need to know to do that.
Yeah, how does that impact maybe the skill sets that data analysts and people working in the data sector need?
So I think there was a time when, I had learning R on my list of things that I was going to do. Learning Python, I'd already started. Things like that where actually you don't really need to learn them in detail. You can definitely get things like Claude Code, ChatGPT to put those things together. You need to know what the right questions are. And so really it changes the requirements to be an analyst from understanding how you can wrangle the data to how do I write the right question, how do I ask the right questions, and what is the context that I need to feed into the machine in order to get the right outputs. And then the important thing, as is always the case with critical thinking, is how to review that data and say, does that actually make sense?
Yeah.
Maybe ask things in a few different ways and make sure that those perspectives all match up and it's not doing something odd.
What would your advice be to people who are, as you said, it sort of democratizes that data so they're able to talk to it sort of more freely, gives you the ability to actually ask those questions, but you've got to run the risk of obviously, is the information it's providing correct?
So I think there will be, for a long time, still a need to have really well curated, good quality data that you can use as that reference so that you've got a finger on the pulse of what is actually true at top level. And that way, when you're querying your data, if it is doing something absolutely insane, you'll very quickly see that. If you know that my top level transactions for that week are 500 transactions with £400,000 worth of revenue, and your output is saying that this small campaign that you ran is delivering half of that, you could very easily tell something's not quite right with that. So I think there's still a place for having that good curated data that data analyst or somebody is putting together. All of us as marketers can very easily get access to data and ask questions. The simpler those questions are, the the more likely it's going to be correct. When you start asking quite complex things, that it starts to go wrong.
Yeah.
Or it needs more of that context. But if your questions are, how many sessions from mobile users, what is the likelihood of somebody on app to convert to web, those sorts of things, probably going to be really good at. And those are quite often the things that you just want a very quick answer to. Oh, how many app users do I have? So the simpler the questions you're asking are, the more likely they are to be correct.
So you still need that validation, you still need that human kind of just sort of to check it, certainly right now. Like, I guess over time, hopefully AI gets better and better and better, and then we can kind of release that sort of a little bit, but at the moment still requires a bit of a human understanding on a lot of that.
It definitely helps, and it's important. I think we've had a few examples where we've looked at things and said, that's great, and you get an expert to look at it. It's like, there's a couple of holes there. Some of it's right and some of it's a bit wrong, and sometimes that's the most dangerous thing, because there's enough right in there that you go with it. Is being able to spot those nuances and saying, actually, we should discard that. And what we would do is then go in and adjust the knowledge file and say, don't look at it in this way. Make sure that you're not making that mistake.
The knowledge piece is the key bit there, isn't it? Just to make sure that somebody who knows what they're doing and talking about has input to say, this is important, this isn't important.
And maybe it's a balance of, if you're making huge decisions, if you're like, shall I spend £2.5 million on a new website? Maybe get that double check. If it's, I've just got to make a decision of what I do for the next few hours.
How critical is the sort of decision? Nice. Okay, good stuff. Well, there we go. Those are the things happening in the world of data. I mean, Claude is going to be significant. Obviously, all of the other LLMs as well are linking up, and that MCP, that Model Context Protocol, how you connect all that data. So if you enjoyed that content, do check out our website. We've got loads more on this topic and other topics related to AI, and particularly its impact on data and on paid and SEO. Also do check out our socials, and we'll see you next time.